in a town our size, Bob is the star. He is the biggest star I can think of and the most, I guess, the most known person in our area.
I always felt like I wanted to be on Sheriff Bob's show. Actually, I seem to remember it being on a lot more than once a week.
Like other people, I thought his show was on 4 times a week, and it was only on 1 time a week, and I swear to God it was on 4 times a week.
Wow, once a day is what I would... Once a week? Seriously?
I walked into McDonald's with my 4-year-old grandson.
And there was Sheriff Bob. You know, I said hello, he said hello, and I walked on by. But it was just kind of neat, you know. It's just like part of my life, part of Eau Claire.
When I see him on television or on a commercial or what have you, I say, there's Sheriff Bob. And if somebody is around that maybe isn't from town, family, or friends or something, who's Sheriff Bob? And then I explain to them who Sheriff Bob is.
It's just a starstruck thing. People from out of town don't understand it. They don't, because they don't know who he was.
I think he's a pretty special guy.
I was a radio operator for the outpost following along with the infantry. I called it on-the-job training. And I enjoyed it. Of course, the days where you got shot at wasn't very fun. I went to night school. During the day, I worked in a grocery store in the fruit and vegetable section. I got excited about the new age of broadcasting, of being a disc jockey. I had lived in Des Moines. I'd go back home once a month, and my wife kept saying, there's a new radio station on the air, why don't you audition? And I said, well, I'm sure they're looking for somebody that has some experience. And she kept at me. So one month when I came home, I auditioned. And about 3 weeks later, I got a call at the store where I was working, and they said, we'd want to hire you. Then, of course, the big thing in those days was to become the top disc jockey in the market. I never quite made that. I did an early morning show at 4:45 every morning on the station. I loved it. I think that the early morning I was at the best because I played the music to get you out of bed and move you.
Well, Bob came about I would say about 1955, after we'd been in operation for almost 2 years. And Bob came, and he wasn't, of course, Sheriff Bob at that time. He just came to do some commercials, and I think he was might have been doing some newscasting at that particular time. Later that he had a cowboy outfit and began to branch out and become Sheriff Bob, and they started the Sheriff Bob show, which became very, very popular and had, of course, the right sponsors. By saying that, I mean they had Dolly Madison for chocolate milk, and they had the Wholesome Bakery for the donuts, and that suited the kids just fine. They were passed out at each of the performances. And Bob was very, very popular. We had to eventually restrict the number of people for the show because and you'd almost had to have a reservation to get on there. I think the big thing was that Bob also expanded by going to the hospitals and calling on sick kids. And this made him tremendously popular and appreciated. More than just popular, he became very much appreciated.
Boy, it was like the summer before 4th grade, and I had my tonsils out. and my throat was all sore. I couldn't talk, and Sheriff Bob was making his rounds, and he came to my room, and that was so exciting to see him.
From what I remember, it was just him in his cowboy hat, and I was scared to death because I was there getting my tonsils out, and my parents. I think that was the time when hospitals didn't allow parents to stay over with the kids, and I was by myself and scared, and he came in, and I had seen him on TV, and I liked him, and he brought in colors and coloring pages and had his cowboy hat on, and I was just so thrilled that he came in to see me and spent a little time talking with me and really made my day and made me feel comfortable and that sort of thing. So I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that.
It was a fun time in my life. I visited the hospitals every Tuesdays and Thursdays, seeing kids that had their tonsils out, bad colds, broken legs, arms. One little boy had one of his eyes shattered with, I believe it was a BB gun. And there were some not too happy moments in that visitation, but it was great to see him. The doctors, they got so that they would schedule their tonsillectomies on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Finally, one doctor told me that when he said, I've got to take out my little friend's tonsils. Are you going to be there Tuesday or Thursday? And I'd say yes. Never miss it. If you're going to start something like that, you better be there. We don't have that anymore. It's a shame. There's really nothing for children anymore like it used to be.
Bob was marvelous in that way. And the show just grew, and I think it could have grown even further, and I think more could have been done. But, for example, participation in many of the parades and events around the area with Bob taking part in them. He did some, but he did it on his own. The station should have been sponsoring him for that sort of thing, because he certainly was an asset to TV 13 and certainly an asset to those on the staff. And Bob was always easy to get along with, still is. When it first started, it was just a few at a time, but then it got so popular that, and organizations even sent groups in from out of town. They came. 4-H clubs, other organizations of kids would come. They had to set up bleachers, of course, and it just got larger and larger.
Yeah, I think it was about 1971, maybe 72, I was on his show. That was a big thrill for me, too. So Sheriff Bob was, I guess, a hero of sorts. Just enjoyed watching the show, and being on there was something fun, too, to think, when you're a little kid, you see yourself on TV and, that kind of thing. But it was a big thrill for me, so.
I was really lucky. I was on Sheriff Bob's show twice in my life. I was on when I was 4 or 5, and here's a picture of me. And I was also on as a Cub Scout. And during that time as a Cub Scout, we had more fun because I was older and could cause more trouble. But when I was a little kid, and I was like 4 or 5, I was pretty young. I was right before my kindergarten year, I think. But I went on his show with full cowboy suit and guns and everything, and Sheriff Bob came up and talked to me. And